There comes a moment in your life when the pain cuts so deep you stop asking why. You stop hoping for an apology. You stop waiting for someone to suddenly wake up and realize the damage they've caused. Because deep down in the silence of your soul, you know the truth. They knew exactly what they were doing and they didn't care. That betrayal you're still healing from. That silence that felt like punishment. That fake smile they wore while they tore you down behind closed doors. None of it was by accident. They watched you break. They heard your voice tremble. They saw your eyes plead for decency. And still they chose cruelty. You weren't misunderstood. You were mistreated. And now you're left with two choices. Stay stuck in the pain they caused or rise from it. Use it. Build with it. Because the ones who hurt you will never carry the weight of your wounds. You will. And only you can decide what to do with that pain. This speech ain't about revenge. It's about revelation. It's about strength. It's about finally understanding. Not everyone who smiles at you has love in their heart. And that's okay because now you know better. There's something about pain that speaks louder than words. When someone wounds you, especially someone close, a friend, a partner, a family member, you begin to see them differently. It's not just the act that hurts. It's the realization that they chose it. Pain strips away the illusion. It peels back the excuses you made for them, the benefit of the doubt you kept giving, and the hope that they didn't really mean it. But then it hits you, they did. They meant it. They knew exactly what to say to tear you down. They knew what would silence your confidence, trigger your insecurities, and make you question your worth. That's not love, that's control. And the moment you recognize that pain as a reflection of who they truly are, not who you hoped they were, that's when your real healing begins. Because you can't fix what someone doesn't even acknowledge. You can't love someone into being kind. You can't bleed for people who wouldn't offer a bandage if you were on the floor. Pain is not just hurt, it's a mirror. It shows you exactly who's standing across from you. Believe what it reveals. Sometimes we ignore the signs because we're afraid of losing people we love. So we tolerate a little disrespect, a little dishonesty, a little distance. We call it a phase or stress, or they're just going through something. But deep down you feel it, that tightening in your chest, that unease in your spirit. You feel the coldness in their words, the sharp edge in their tone, and still you hope it will pass. But here's the truth. People show you who they are and how they treat you when you're vulnerable, when you're down. When you have nothing to offer them, that's when masks fall. That's when real character surfaces. And pain captures that moment. It locks it in. It refuses to let you forget it because it wants you to see it clearly. And if you ignore that mirror, you're not being kind or loyal. You're just setting yourself up to bleed again. Pain doesn't lie. The people who caused it might, but pain is honest. It demands your attention, and it won't go away until you've learned what it came to teach. There's a version of you that once believed they didn't mean it, that they were just careless, that they just made a mistake. You made excuses to protect your peace, to protect the love you felt, to protect the relationship you cherished. But you forgot to protect you. You forgot that no one who truly values you will consistently hurt you and dismiss your pain. And so the pain became your reminder, that voice in your head that kept whispering, "This isn't okay." The ache in your chest that showed up every time they crossed that same line again. That feeling wasn't weakness. That was your soul trying to wake you up. Pain has a purpose, and one of the most powerful things it does is shatter illusions. It makes you look again. It makes you listen differently. And when it gets loud enough, it forces you to face what you were too scared to admit. They've been showing you who they are all along. You just didn't want to believe it. But now you see it. Now you know. The problem is we often don't want to let go of the version of them we created in our minds. We hold on to potential, not patterns. We cling to memories, not reality. We fall in love with their good moments and ignore the countless times they left us drowning in confusion and silence. But the truth is in the pain. Pain doesn't care about potential. Pain exposes patterns. It makes you replay the things they said when they knew it would hurt. It reminds you of how they acted like your pain was a burden. How they flipped the blame back on you. How they minimized what they did because admitting the truth would mean they'd have to change. And some people love their comfort more than they love you. Pain shows you this. It lays it all out raw and unfiltered. And the moment you stop covering it up is the moment you reclaim your clarity. It's not your job to change them. It's not your fault they chose to be careless. But it is your responsibility to listen when pain starts to speak. There's a shift that happens when you start trusting what the pain is trying to tell you. You no longer need them to say sorry. You don't sit around waiting for closure. You don't spend your nights trying to understand what you did wrong, because suddenly the mirror turns and you realize it wasn't about you. Their cruelty, their neglect, their manipulation, that was a reflection of them, not your worth. And that's the moment your healing begins. Not because they apologized, not because they changed, but because you did. You started seeing the truth. You stopped lying to yourself, and with every tear you shed, you release the weight of the mask you once held up for them. Pain doesn't just reveal who they are. It reveals who you become in the process. Stronger, wiser, clearer, and no matter how much it hurt, the pain gave you something priceless, the power to never let it happen again. And yes, it hurts to realize someone you trusted could hurt you like that. It cuts deeper than most wounds because it's not the betrayal of strangers. It's the betrayal of people who looked you in the eye and promised you something different. That pain, that's sacred. That pain carries the truth that words could never say. And you don't have to pretend it didn't happen. You don't have to be okay just to make others comfortable. Sit with it. Feel it. Because until you feel it, you can't heal it. And when you do, when you finally let it rise and move through you, you'll feel lighter. Because the pain was never just about the action. It was about the meaning. And when you strip that meaning away, when you realize you didn't deserve it, when you stop blaming yourself, that's when your strength shows up. Quiet at first, then louder. And suddenly you're no longer trapped in what they did. You're standing in what you learned. People say you're being dramatic, that you're too sensitive, that you're overthinking. But those are usually the people who caused the pain in the first place. They don't want you to speak up. They don't want you to change. Because when you start acknowledging the truth, you disturb the comfort of their lies. You disrupt the cycle. Pain isn't just about suffering. It's about awakening. The mirror doesn't just show you them. It shows you your loyalty, your silence, your tolerance. And when you finally face that mirror, you reclaim your power because now you get to decide who has access to you. You get to stop begging for basic decency. You get to walk away not because you're bitter, but because you finally believe you deserve more. You see, pain isn't weakness. It's clarity. It's direction. It's a holy disruption that breaks your heart open so you can finally rebuild it the right way. The hardest part about looking into the mirror of pain is realizing how long you stayed silent. How many times you swallowed your voice to keep the peace. How many nights you cried and wiped your own tears just to protect someone who wouldn't even notice if you disappeared. But that's part of the journey. You needed to go through that to understand just how valuable your heart is, just how rare your soul is. And now that you've seen what pain reveals, you can no longer ignore it. That version of you who stayed silent, they were surviving. But the version of you who speaks up, who sets boundaries, who chooses peace over people pleasing, that version is rising. And it's powerful because now when people show you who they are, you don't paint over it. You don't shrink. You don't beg. You simply say, I see you. And you move on. The mirror doesn't lie, but it does require courage to face. And if you're reading this, if you've made it this far, that means you've got that courage. That means you've been through some storms and you're still standing. That means the pain didn't destroy you. It delivered you to a higher awareness, a deeper love for yourself, a refusal to settle. You don't need them to validate your truth anymore. You saw what you saw. You felt what you felt, and now your healing is yours. Your clarity is yours. Your peace is yours. Let the pain keep revealing. Let it keep refining, because now you don't just carry the pain, you carry the power that came from surviving it. You don't need someone to scream at you to know they don't care. Sometimes the loudest rejection is silence. You sent the message. You reached out. You made the effort. And all you got back was nothing. Not a single word, not a glance, not even the decency of acknowledgement. And at first you tried to make sense of it. You told yourself, maybe they were busy. Maybe they didn't see it. Maybe they're just processing. But deep down you knew. You felt the sting of being dismissed. That ache in your chest when the phone stayed silent. When the hours turned into days and days into weeks, and suddenly you weren't waiting for a reply anymore. You were confronting the truth. The silence was the reply. They weren't unsure. They weren't confused. They just didn't care enough to respond. And that realization cuts deep. Not because they were honest, but because they weren't. Because ignoring someone is a decision. A clear, cold decision to say you don't matter enough. But hear this, just because someone doesn't value your presence doesn't mean you have no value. Their silence doesn't define you. It only reveals them. And it tells you everything you needed to know. Silence isn't neutral. It's not passive. It's not maybe. It's deliberate. They knew you were waiting. They knew you were hurting. They knew you were holding on to hope. And still they said nothing. Nothing. That kind of silence isn't forgetfulness. It's power. It's a tactic. It's them choosing to watch you wonder, to let you question your worth, to sit back and say, you're not even worth a reply. That kind of silence is louder than 1,000 angry words. And yet we try to rationalize it. We tell ourselves they'll come around, that this is temporary. But let me ask you, since when did love go silent? Since when did care sound like distance? When someone loves you, they don't leave you in the dark. They don't disappear when it gets uncomfortable. Silence is their answer. It's their final word without saying a single syllable. And it's brutal, but it's also clarifying. Because when someone can ignore your pain, your vulnerability, your presence, that's not love. That's avoidance. That's detachment. That's emotional cowardice. And it's time to stop translating their silence into confusion. You're not confused. You're just hurt. And they chose to cause that. It's in the silence that you start to learn the most about people. Because when the noise is gone, when there are no more excuses, no more sweet words, no more empty promises, you see what remains. And if all that remains is distance, avoidance, and absence, then that's who they really are. They don't have to say it to show it. And maybe that's what hurts the most. Realizing that the person who once filled your world with words now can even offer you a sentence. But in that pain, in that heaviness is a lesson. People don't stay silent by accident. They stay silent by choice. And that choice is them saying, I'm fine without you. And as much as that may break your heart, it's also the very thing that frees it. Because now you don't have to wonder. You don't have to guess. Their silence is a full confession. They may not have said goodbye, but their silence did. And maybe it's not the closure you wanted, but it's the truth you needed. And truth, no matter how painful, is what sets you free. We all crave explanations. We want answers. We want clarity. We want to know what we did wrong, what changed, why the connection faded. So we wait, we hold on. We check the phone, we scroll through old messages hoping for a clue, a sign, a signal that it was real. But sometimes the truth is right in front of us. They're not coming. They're not reaching out. Not because they can't, but because in that realization it hurts. It feels like a slow death, like watching someone let go of your hand in the middle of a storm. You gave your all. They gave their silence. And now you sit in the aftermath trying to make sense of a noise that never came. But let me tell you something. You are not unworthy because someone stopped responding. You are not broken because they chose the easy way out. Silence is often the refuge of the weak, is how people avoid responsibility, avoid confrontation, avoid facing themselves. So if they chose silence over honesty, that's not a reflection of your failure. It's a reflection of their fear, and that's not your burden to carry anymore. Do you know what strength is? Strength is sitting in silence and choosing not to break. Strength is realizing they're not calling, not texting, not apologizing, and still getting up, showing up, and pushing through. That kind of strength doesn't come easy. It comes after the tears, after the sleepless nights, after the desperate praying and questioning and bargaining. But once you accept it, once you truly accept that silence is an answer, you begin to reclaim your peace. Because the moment you stop expecting a sound that's never coming is the moment you hear your own voice again. The voice that says, I matter. The voice that says, I deserve more. The voice that says, I will not wait for people who walk away quietly. And that voice will save you. Because as much as their silence crushed you, it also created space for healing, for truth, for new beginnings. You don't need noise to validate your worth. You need truth. And the truth is, if they can ignore you, they never truly saw you. Let's stop pretending that silence is polite, that it's a soft way of saying goodbye. Silence is cruel. It leaves room for self-doubt to grow. It makes you think you were the problem, that you asked for too much, that you cared too deeply, that you loved too loudly. But listen, there's nothing wrong with you for loving openly, for showing up, for trying. The silence isn't your punishment. It's their character on full display. You gave them access to your heart, and they responded with absence. That doesn't mean you were wrong to love. It means they were wrong to waste it. Don't confuse someone's emotional immaturity with your emotional failure. You didn't lose them. They lost someone who would have stood by them through anything. And one day they'll realize it. But that won't matter, because by then you'll have healed. By then you'll have learned, and by then you'll be surrounded by people who speak back, who show up, who match your energy. The silence that once broke you will become the silence that protects you. It's strange how we associate love with words. But real love isn't silent. Real love shows up. Real love checks in. Real love doesn't hide when things get hard. So when they go silent, when they vanish without warning, that's not love. That's abandonment. And abandonment isn't love's cousin. It's love's opposite. Stop waiting for them to come back and explain themselves. Their silence is the explanation. It says, I didn't care enough to stay. And as much as that might sting, you need that truth, because the moment you embrace it, you stop chasing people who ran. You stop shrinking yourself just to fit in someone's life. You start realizing that your voice, your feelings, your presence, they matter. And the people meant for you, they won't respond with silence. They'll respond with presence, with commitment, with truth. You don't need more words from the wrong person. You need peace. And peace often begins with letting go of the ones who fell silent when you needed them the most. You deserve answers, yes, but more than that, you deserve effort. You deserve people who don't just respond when it's convenient, but who make you feel heard even in chaos. The kind of people who don't let silence become a weapon. Who don't leave you on red when they know you're breaking. Who don't retreat into quiet just to maintain control. Because silence can be control. Silence can be punishment. And when someone ignores you deliberately, repeatedly, consciously, they are choosing themselves at your expense. That's not strength. That's selfishness. And you have to see it for what it is. The longer you wait for a reply, the more power you give to someone who already walked away. Reclaim your power. Reclaim your energy. Reclaim your voice. The absence of their words doesn't mean you should silence your own. Let your silence be healing, not waiting. Let your silence be peace, not punishment. If they ignored you, that was their answer. And now it's time for you to give your answer by walking away with your dignity intact. Maybe the hardest part of silence is how familiar it becomes. You get used to the quiet. You start filling in the blanks yourself, creating closure where there is none, forgiving people who never asked. And that's what makes silence dangerous. It tricks you into making peace with people who never made peace with you. But you deserve more than internal closure. You deserve real conversations. You deserve mutual care. You deserve people who don't vanish when things get hard. So take this silence as loud as it is, and let it speak the truth to your heart. Let it remind you of what you will no longer tolerate. Let it shape your standards, not your insecurities. You are not invisible. You are not forgettable. And you are not someone people should ever feel comfortable ignoring. The silence they gave you, return it with distance, not desperation. Return it with strength, not sadness, because you've heard all you need to hear. Their silence was their voice. Now let your silence be your power. You keep waiting for them to wake up and realize your worth. You keep hoping they'll change, they'll rise. They'll match the love and effort you've poured into them. But they won't. Not because you're not worth it, but because you haven't drawn the line, because you haven't demanded more. And that's the hard truth. People will give you exactly what you allow. If you accept crumbs, they'll never serve you a full meal. If you settle for silence, they'll never offer truth. If you tolerate half love, you'll never get the real thing. You're not being overlooked, you're being observed. They see how much you'll take without protest, how far you'll bend before you break. And if you don't stand up and say, this isn't enough, they'll keep giving you less. You teach people how to treat you. Every time you stay silent when they hurt you, every time you forgive without boundaries, every time you love without receiving, you send a message, this is okay. But it's not, and it never was. You deserve better, but you have to demand it, not with anger, not with begging, but with presence, with dignity, with standards so strong they become protection, not walls. Better doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who refuse to settle. There comes a moment when you have to stop blaming them for not giving and start blaming yourself for continuing to accept. Harsh may be necessary, absolutely. Because growth requires confrontation. It means facing the part of you that keeps shrinking just to stay loved. The part that keeps making excuses for disrespect. The part that says, maybe this is all I'll get. No, it's not. That's fear talking. That's trauma whispering. That's broken history trying to repeat itself. But you are not your past. And you are not powerless. You are allowed to say, I deserve consistency. I deserve love without conditions. I deserve communication that doesn't make me question my sanity. But nobody will say that for you. Nobody will draw those lines on your behalf. That is your job. And yes, it's terrifying to risk losing people by raising your standards. But let me ask you, what are you really losing if they walk away when you finally respect yourself? Because anything you lose by choosing better was never truly for you. You weren't made to beg for loyalty. You weren't created to be an afterthought. You weren't born to sit in confusion wondering why they treat strangers better than they treat you. But sometimes we stay in places we've outgrown just because we fear being alone. We convince ourselves that less is better than nothing. But that lie will keep you locked in cycles of disappointment. Hear me. You are not asking for too much. You're just asking the wrong people. The right ones won't make you beg. The right ones won't make you doubt yourself every day. But they won't find you while you're stuck entertaining the wrong ones. There's power in walking away. There's strength in silence. And his beauty in the moment you realize you are no longer available for half-hearted love. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone deserves your energy, your time, your heart. Just because you have a big heart doesn't mean it belongs in small hands. You deserve better, but better begins when you believe it. And belief isn't words. It's action. It's boundaries. It's saying no more, even when your heart still wants to say yes. Every time you tolerate being ignored, disrespected, overlooked, you teach them that this is okay, and eventually they believe it. They begin to expect it, and you begin to feel invisible. Not because you are, but because you allow them to make you feel that way. But you weren't born to disappear. You weren't made to fade into the background of someone else's selfishness. You were made to shine. But you don't shine by accident. You shine when you say enough. When you look in the mirror and stop asking, why won't they treat me better, and start asking, why do I keep letting them? That's when things change. That's when you reclaim your power. That's when you stop settling for being tolerated and start expecting to be cherished. And that expectation isn't arrogance, it's awareness. The moment you realize what you bring to the table, you stop settling for crumbs. You start sitting at tables where your presence is celebrated, not questioned. But that shift can't happen until you stop begging and start demanding, not with loud words, but with quiet strength. It starts with you, not them. You want better, then you have to be better to yourself. That means loving yourself enough to walk away from anything that chips away at your peace. That means not answering texts that only come when it's convenient for them. That means not giving second, third, fourth chances to people who didn't respect the first. Self-respect isn't something you find in others. It's something you build in silence, in private, in the deep moments of loneliness, where your only company is the voice inside that says, you are worth more than this. Because here's the truth. People can only love you as deeply as you love yourself. If you keep showing up for people who never show up for you, that's not love. That's abandonment dressed in loyalty. Stop betraying yourself just to keep others comfortable. Better doesn't chase, it attracts. And when you demand better, you'll be surprised how quickly people either rise to meet you or leave. Either way, it's a win. 'Cause the ones who stay, they'll match your energy, not drain it. Let's talk about fear, 'cause that's what keeps you stuck. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear that maybe they were the best you'll ever get. But fear lies, fear limits, and fear convinces you to settle for situations that steal your soul little by little. But love shouldn't feel like survival. Relationships shouldn't feel like walking on glass. You deserve to breathe, to rest, to speak and be heard, to love and be loved fully, freely, without confusion. But you won't find that until you face fear and walk through it. Until you say, even if I'm alone for a while, I'd rather be alone than poorly loved. That's not weakness. That's strength in its highest form. That's you standing up for the version of you that's been silenced for too long. The version that knows they deserve more but kept quiet because of fear. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You just need to stop accepting treatment that makes you feel less than whole. Because better is out there, but only for those who are brave enough to say no to less. You ever notice how peace feels foreign when you've spent years in chaos? That's because you've normalized dysfunction. You've made excuses for inconsistency. You've mistaken anxiety for passion. But love shouldn't hurt. It shouldn't make you question your worth every other day. And the reason you're tired, the reason your soul feels heavy is because deep down you know this isn't it. You know you were made for something deeper, something softer, something safe. But here's the kicker. You can't have that and still hold on to what's hurting you. You can't move forward with your foot stuck in the past. You have to choose. Peace or pain, freedom or fear, love or longing. And that choice isn't easy, but it is necessary. 'Cause you can't build a beautiful future on a foundation of broken promises. You deserve better, but better requires sacrifice. Sacrifice of comfort, of familiarity, of temporary attention. But the reward, real love, real healing, real connection. And you don't find those by waiting. You find them by walking, by growing, by demanding what you know you were born to receive. Let them call you cold. Let them call you difficult. Let them say you've changed because you have. You've evolved. You've awakened. You've stopped pretending that being mistreated is normal. That loving harder will fix someone who won't change. You've stopped trying to convince people of your worth. That's not cold, that's clarity. You spent too long bending yourself to fit into spaces that were never designed for your light. You dimmed yourself to make others comfortable. No more, not now. Now you stand tall. Now you say, if you want access to me, you earn it. Not through words, but through consistency, through effort, through truth. You've cried. You've waited, you've begged, and none of it changed them. But the moment you demanded better, that's when your healing began. That's when you started building a life that reflects your worth, not your wounds. So don't apologize for raising your standards. Apologize for ever lowering them just to keep someone who was never meant to stay. You deserve better friendships, better love, better energy around you. You deserve calls that don't come only when they need something. You deserve texts that ask how you are. You deserve people who notice your silence and show up. And yes, those people exist, but you'll never meet them if you keep filling your space with those who deplete you. Clear the room, make space, set the standard, because people rise or exit based on the boundaries you enforce. If you want better, stop romanticizing chaos. Stop holding on to people just because you have history. History doesn't equal destiny. Just because you love them doesn't mean they're right for your future. Let go, not bitterly, but boldly. Let go with love, let go with strength, let go knowing that better is coming, not because of luck, but because of choice, the choice to demand more. The choice to value yourself, the choice to walk away from anything that whispers, you're not enough, you are enough, you've always been enough, and now it's time to start acting like it. Forgiveness doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're saying what they did was okay. It means you're choosing your peace over your bitterness. It means you're setting yourself free from the weight of pain they put on your shoulders. Forgiveness is not about them. It's about you. You deserve to wake up without that heavy feeling in your chest. You deserve to breathe again without the past choking your joy. But don't get it twisted. Just because you forgive them doesn't mean you pretend it never happened. You can release the anger without reopening the door. You can let go of the hate without inviting them back in. You can move forward without giving them the same access to your heart. The pain taught you something. The betrayal carved truth into your bones. And that truth, it's sacred. Don't let guilt trick you into forgetting what they showed you. Don't let love for their potential blind you from the reality of their pattern. Forgive them so you can heal. But remember the lesson so you don't repeat the cycle. They knew what they were doing. Maybe they said all the right words. Maybe they cried when you walked away. Maybe they played the victim so well you almost stayed. But deep down you know the truth. You know the silence they gave you wasn't accidental. You know the manipulation wasn't confusion. It was a choice. And that's what stings the most. Not that they made a mistake, but that they made it knowing you'd hurt. And still you have to forgive. Not for them, but for your own soul. Because holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting them to suffer. You let go for your own freedom. But letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean you ignore the red flags next time. It means you take the wisdom with you. It means you stop making excuses for behavior that broke you. It means you finally understand love without accountability is just self-destruction in disguise. Forgiveness is power. Memory is protection. Together they build a new you. A version that loves without losing, that gives without being drained, that trusts but also discerns. You learned the hard way, didn't you? You gave them chance after chance. You told yourself they would change. That time would fix it. That love was enough, but it wasn't. And maybe that's the toughest pill to swallow. Realizing that even the deepest love can't make someone become who they're not ready to be. You fought for them, but now it's time to fight for you. And that starts with forgiveness. Not because they apologize, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. You deserve to walk through life without their shadow following you. But never forget what they taught you. Never forget how it felt to be talked over, ignored, lied to. That pain is a road map. It's a compass pointing you away from more of the same. Next time you see the signs, you won't explain them away. You'll trust your gut. You'll trust the lesson because pain is the best teacher. And you paid for that lesson with your heart. Don't let it go to waste. Don't call it love if it costs your self-worth. Don't call it forgiveness if you keep forgetting why you had to heal in the first place. Sometimes we confuse loyalty with self-neglect. We stay because we remember the good times, because we're scared of starting over, because we think leaving means we didn't love hard enough. But love isn't supposed to make you forget yourself. It's supposed to remind you who you are. And if someone ever made you feel like your voice didn't matter, like your tears were too much, like your standards were a burden, then you've got to forgive them. Yes. But you've also got to remember that moment. That moment when you realized your kindness was being taken for weakness, that your patience was enabling, that your silence was costing you your peace. That moment was your awakening. Don't let healing erase the facts. Don't romanticize the moments that nearly broke you. Forgive them for what they did, but hold the lesson like armor. Well, keep it in your back pocket. Every time someone new tries to love you, let it be your reminder. I've been here before. I won't go back. I'm not bitter. I'm just better. They apologize. Maybe, or maybe they never did. Maybe they ghosted you like nothing happened. Maybe they moved on like you never mattered. Maybe they're out there living free while you're still picking up the pieces. That's the part that cuts deep. The injustice, the silence, the lack of closure. But here's the truth. You don't need their apology to forgive. Closure is an inside job. You close the chapter by deciding your peace matters more than they're absent. But never forget how long it took to rebuild your confidence. How long it took to stop checking your phone. How long it took to believe in your own worth again. That was work. That was blood, sweat, and tears. Don't let one eye miss you make you forget the nights they made you feel invisible. Forgive because your soul deserves to be light again. But remember, because your future deserves protection. Not everyone who says sorry is safe. Not everyone who wants access has earned it. Not everyone who broke you deserves a second shot. Trust actions. Trust growth. Trust your own healing. Forgiveness is a quiet strength. It's choosing not to carry what they left behind. It's walking through the ashes and building something new. And that's courageous because it's easier to be angry. It's easier to stay in the pain, to replay the story until it consumes you. But you're bigger than what they did to you. You're stronger than the silence they gave. And even if they never say a word, even if they never admit the damage, you heal anyway. That's your power. But with that power comes responsibility. You have to protect the new you, the wiser you. That means not returning to what broke you just because you missed what it used to be. That means not confusing comfort with compatibility. That means remembering that you deserve love that doesn't leave bruises, not physical, not emotional, not spiritual. You forgive because bitterness changed you to their mistake. But you never forget because memory keeps you from reopening old wounds. Some doors aren't meant to be reopened. Some chapters end so you can rewrite your story in peace. You'll be tempted, no doubt. They'll text late at night. They'll say they've changed. They'll cry and say, "You're the only one who ever understood me." And your heart, it's big. It remembers the good times. It hopes, it wants, it yearns. But then you remember the coldness, the distance, the way they blamed you for feeling too much, the way they left you confused, doubting yourself, apologizing for asking to be treated like a human being who you remember. And that memory, that's your